Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep, we can. So you can start if you want. Yeah.
All right, just to let you know, I've just moved house and I'm running like a one-screen ghetto setup. And I'm actually reading my script from my phone. So I actually won't be able to see chat until the talk is over. So just to let you know to hold fire on your questions until that point. I would appreciate it.
Will do.
And okay, so view, present, and get rid of you. Go away. Thank you. Okay, so hi. If you don't know me, my name is Katie, and I'm also known as New West Games. And on screen there, you've got some of my previous titles. And today, I wanted to talk to you about negative reviews. And the reason that I wanted to share this is because of my own journey as a solo developer. My games have received really mixed reviews across the board, and to be honest, quite rightly so. But over time, I learned that the negative reviews could really teach me a lot, and I hope that maybe it can give you some insight as well and help you to think more critically about your own content. So we all get bad reviews and we all get troll reviews. It's just a fact of being a game developer on Steam, right? So nowadays, more than ever, we're kind of encouraged to filter out trolls. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the phrase for YouTube, like, don't read the comment section, right? Well, here's a reply I received once on YouTube. And yeah, this one's awful. Don't ever get involved with the comments on YouTube. It's a really, really bad idea. I don't recommend it. But this sort of filtering applies to everyday life too. You know, we filter things out, we ignore them. Just like when you see political things that don't line up with your views. I mean, who hasn't filtered out Donald Trump at one time or another? The man says a lot of crazy things, and to listen to it all would be likely to drive anyone crazy. But how does this apply to reviews? Well, let's take a look at some. Now, these are all reviews from my own games on Steam in varying levels of crazy. But there is always a lesson that can be learned from these. So this one is no CG and memory, 2 characters, no ge, only B, waste my time and money, crepe game. So this is a review for my game Sweet Volley High. And yes, there's even a lesson that can be learned with this one. I mean, obviously the review is quite poorly written, and at first glance, it barely even makes sense. And also, you know, crepes. But so it seems easy to dismiss, right? But there is some value in this, even the most poorly written of reviews. Now, the first part of this is making mention to the fact that this game actually shipped without a functional CG gallery. And that came from my own kind of purely overconfident thinking. I don't use CG galleries, so I bet no one would miss them if they weren't in the game. Now, clearly, this review proved me quite wrong, and one was included with subsequent releases. Let's take a look at another. Low quality story, boring characters, very bad voices, and below average CGs. There were 2 or 3 erotic arts that were okay, but that's all. Playing Sweet Volley High is a waste of time. Now, on the face of it, though this critique is harsh, it appears to offer no distinct feedback. Now, some reviews that you get will go into really quite a lot of detail about certain aspects and what they would have maybe liked to see done differently, or additional content that you could have included, things of that sort. And those can be really, really useful. But sadly, this one did not. So where can we find the value in a review like this? Playing Sweet Volley High is a waste of time. It's all about that last sentence. Clearly, the player found next to no enjoyment from the game. And it's a good reminder that it's actually not a player's job to figure out why something is bad. it's the creator's job. It's your job to figure out why. And that's actually something that even the big companies can forget to realize and not implement. But before we get into that, let's look at a couple more. 1 out of 10. Censored, skip. Now, this is a review for a game that was released on Steam when patching was mandatory for adult content, but mentioning those patches would result in your game being pulled off the platform. I'm sure many of you here remember those fun times. So the game really wasn't censored, just as long as you knew where to find the patch. And clearly this shows that I wasn't doing a nearly good enough job getting the word out about the patches and engaging with the people that actually did play my games. This one is both visuals and writing are horrible, repetitive and boring. There's no meaningful choices. The drama seems made of cardboard. Now, sometimes you can get a review that, despite its brevity, can really trigger an emotional response in you. This is a game called Frequent Flyer that I made, which was really like a 90% true story about an abusive relationship that I had experienced in my real life. It was a really tough life experience to go through. So I looked at writing the game as a sort of cathartic healing process of sorts. Yet here comes along some dude on Steam to tell me that real things in my life are a cardboard cutout, that the traumatic experiences that I went through aren't dramatic enough for him. Or, that's one way to react to it. Let's look at it logically. Repetitive and boring. No meaningful choices. Now, developing this game, I wanted to elicit frustration in the player, to give them a sort of the feeling that I went through during my experiences. I wanted to give them choices that had no meaningful consequences, as that's what happened to me. By nature of what happened to me, my story was long and drawn out, so why shouldn't theirs be, right? Now, this is why adaptations of works often differ from the source material. A movie based on a book is often sharper and more dramatic, and why books about true stories often read, very much the same way. Turns out it wasn't my experience or my story that was at fault. It was my adaptation. It can be really hard to realize those sorts of things, especially during the creative process and while you're writing it, especially if it's something that is a true story and really personal to you. Sometimes it can take a lot of time to admit your own failings in those situations. Now, as I hinted at earlier, Final Fantasy XIV was a game that was critically panned on first launch. It was plagued with performance, content, and other issues. And originally their response was to patch it, to put band-aids over something that was broken and just hope that the players responded. And then enter Yoshi-P, who eventually came on board as the game's director and producer. And honestly, he's one of my personal heroes. He admits his feelings honestly and works tirelessly to make experiences that bring joy to people, to make them happy. Now, as some of you probably know, they scrapped the original build of 14, and they actually canonized it as they descended the giant mood Dalamud to destroy the world and start all over again with Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. It resulted in this wonderfully honest launch event, with Yoshi-P struggling to hold back tears as he described his struggle and his own sense of accomplishment after 3 years at having provided a truly fun experience for players, even if it was 3 years late. Now, during the rebuild, they did research. They looked at their competitors. They spoke to their fan base. And they really got to the heart of what the issues were in order to make a better experience. So what can I learn from this? Well, here's a review from someone who is here today. I'm not going to attempt to say his name, but he knows who he is, so please make yourself known. And he rips into my content, but at first both fairly and unfairly. I actually ended up reaching out to this reviewer on Twitter. And since then, he's gone on to purchase and review every single one of my games. We're actually working on an interview together right now where, spoiler alert, I intend to tell him just how much his reviews have forced me to think more critically about my own work. And as for Yoshi P and Final Fantasy XIV, what can I learn there? Well, my first game, A Wildcat Girl Appears, was an absolute travesty when it launched. I was lucky enough to make the front page of Steam back when that was like a really big deal. And I had no idea what I was doing. So eventually I remade the game, and it still kind of sucks. Though Eiko here, one of the characters in the game, was actually adopted by the trans community, which wasn't really my intention, but I'm kind of delighted anyway, as she's become kind of an unintentional anti-discrimination Drake meme, which I'm just over the moon about. It's absolutely wonderful. But that's actually why I've been remaking the game in secret for some time. And although it's not going to be ready for at least another year, at least, I'm confident that, finally, 4 years later, that I'll hopefully be able to provide a product that my fans can be happy about as well. Now, I guarantee that you have examples like this that relate to your own games. I really encourage you to distance yourselves from your content. Solicit feedback not from echo chambers, but from those who do directly criticize you. Only then will you get the honesty needed for you to become better at what you do. But how can you even do that? Well, Google yourself. It's something you should be doing anyway for marketing and visibility purposes. And it's a great way to find content that you normally don't see in your bubble. In fact, it's how I found the reviewer that I spoke about earlier. Next, reach out, make contact. Now, sadly, not everyone you reach out to is going to be receptive, but you'd really be surprised at how many of them are receptive to you reaching out to them. And take their critique to heart. You may not necessarily agree with all the points. Maybe they criticize something you did on purpose, like my example about a frustrating experience. If it's supposed to be that way, but they don't get it, that's not their fault. It's yours. It should teach you that you need to convey your ideas more clearly, or with more build-up and foreshadowing, whatever the situation may be. And I had a phone call, which really sucks. Okay. Next, reach out. Ask your fans on Discord, on Twitter. Ask your gamer friends IRL to play your games. Make a friend here today. Throw them a key and get feedback from them. Much like Final Fantasy XIV, you're on a quest. You need to make the best content possible so that maybe one day you'll have a smash hit like one of these visual novels, or connect with your audience on a deeper level, whatever your goals happen to be. But much like maxing out your level, that's not the end of your quest. There are other classes you can choose, new challenges and content releasing all the time that you can tackle, as well as a whole bunch of legacy content that you may have skipped in your excitement to get to the finish line. Ultimately, I'd encourage you all to make a new friend here today and do a critique swap. Get real perspective into where you succeed and where you don't. Only then can you turn those negatives into positives. Lastly, never forget to make it right to your players. It's something that I know I'm still working on. But if you have negative reviews and comments, take them seriously, like Yoshi P does. Thank you very much for listening. There's a little plug on screen for my next game, Queerly Just Friends. It's a love story aimed at the queer community. I also share a lot on my Patreon page and all of that stuff, and so that's there as well. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to load up the chat room now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for me. Thank you very much. Where's chat?
Cool. So I have a good 10 minutes time.
Oh, wow. I finished early. Okay.
Yeah. So go at it, guys. Just, you know what to do.
How do I handle people who keep coming back time and time again to flood my game with negative feedback? You do find people with those axes to grind from time to time. And always my first step these days is to reach out, because sometimes that constant attacking is born out of their own frustration. But sometimes that doesn't work. And so sometimes, that's when you do have to get involved with community moderation and all of that sort of stuff. But I find that that really is a last resort and really shouldn't happen all that much. So you recall that I switched from Tyranno to Renpai. How long was that, and how long did it take? I did. That was related to the Wildcat Girl remake. Because, oh boy, that was a mess. It actually didn't take that long. Basic Renpai code and Tyranno code is actually really easy to build a parser for, because the terminology isn't all that different, just in terms of the scripting. So that was what I ended up doing. I want to say it took maybe 2-3 weeks to do the whole thing. Do I have any examples of my favorite good reviews? It's mostly the ones that I don't have any examples to hand. I didn't think that far ahead. But the ones that come to mind are the ones that try and understand the story the most. Understanding that regardless of any other things like musical or art limitations that may have been in place in the game or that maybe weren't to their taste, when they really go after the heart of the story, and even if they don't 100% vibe with it, even if they got something out of it and could resonate with at least one of the characters, that always is a good feeling for me. So that's what I always really appreciate in a review. And I really enjoyed Sweet Boy Hi. Oh, well, thank you very much, Diego. I really appreciate that. Any other questions? And Wolf, you're so welcome. I've improved a lot as an artist since 2017. It's been one of the things I've been working on for the past couple of years. So, maybe in the future we can work together again. I would really, really enjoy that. And unless anyone else has any questions, I think that might be it.
All right. Well, if people have questions, we have some time left. If not, I'll just, I don't know, expand my talk slightly, because I didn't even time mine. The most organized guy here, guys.
Well, yeah. Why don't you go ahead?
All right. Well, I can just put mine up while you guys go crazy.
Oh, one more. Anything specific that I actually enjoy in reviews, or do I find the most helpful and that people rarely people rarely mention? Something that I think people rarely mention is authorial intent and how that relates to the main character. Occasionally I will come across a review that actually tries to analyze it more like you would analyze a novel as opposed to a visual novel or a video game. And they actually start thinking about authorial intent and what my intent may have been when writing the characters, and specifically the main character. And I always find those the most interesting, because then it becomes obvious that the person that wrote the review really connected with the work and found it so interesting that they want to kind of really get involved and dissect that. And yeah, and as far as critique swap goes, message someone randomly, and if you don't feel like you're comfortable doing that, message me and I will play Secret Critique Santa for you all. Send me a PM, send me a link to something that you want reviewed, and I will pair everyone up. I'm more than happy to do that. And with that, yeah, I think that'll be it for me.